back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen, and as you can see I am experimenting a little bit with my jet boil. If you watch my video a couple of videos ago, I think, when I was up in the western area of the Lake District, I enjoyed a kind of dehydrated chicken fried rice, and it kind of got me thinking, like, what different ways I can eat food with my jet boil. Got the old Uncle Ben's microwavable rice. I've tried to boil it in here. It's not bad. It's two things. It's a little bit too much faff, I'd say, and by the time it's all kind of ready, I've put the tuna in here, which in itself was a bit of a faff. It's gone a little bit sort of lukewarm, so probably not the best. But yeah, I'd love to ask if anybody has any tricks or ideas of sort of cooking stuff with the jet boil. Basically, the chicken fried pouch thing that I had there a week or so ago was quality. It was so good, so convenient, minimal faff, like zero faff really. But it was like £5.50, which I still think if you're going on a big hike or wild camping is actually not too bad for the convenience, but it's quite expensive. So that's why I'm trying with these sorts of things, which are like 80p or whatever. But yeah, that's not really the best first go at it. But yeah, anyway, this is a photography channel, not a channel about food. Definitely not a channel about food. I'm in the wonderful Lake District once again, and my plans have been scuppered a little bit this afternoon. I wanted to go to a particular location to do some woodland photography, but a tree fell down in the road earlier on, so no cars can get past. So I've had to change my plans a little bit. I've just come to another woodland that I know fairly well, and I'm going to do some exploring. It's pretty overcast, breaks of light every now and again, so the conditions aren't ideal for woodland photography. But yeah, I'm looking forward to exploring around and finishing off my old spicy Mexican Uncle Ben's, which I don't think it's going to be the best. Yeah, let me know if you know any tips and tricks with the old jet boil. So I've done a little bit of excuse me, I've done a little bit of research on this woodland in the past, and like I say, I've been here a few times, and it's branded an ancient woodland, which has always confused me because it's really coniferous-y, it's definitely not a word, but you know, loads of pine trees and stuff, which I'm not really a big fan of. It's definitely been a bit of a plantation at some stage, and it's quite frustrating because it cannot say it's an ancient woodland if it isn't. It's quite a big forest, so I mean, all I can think is I've not explored it enough to find the more ancient sections. So I guess before I can think of any photography, that's kind of what I've got to do at the minute. Just find the, what would it be, deciduous section of the woodland. So yeah, that's the plan for now. It's not looking too promising, but I'm going to keep wandering around, see if I can find a more attractive section of the forest. So after honestly a good part of 2 hours of exploring around this woodland, I finally found an area that's worthy to get the camera out for. In fact, I'm in a completely different woodland. I've walked for ages, but this is beautiful, proper deciduous. It's got a real ancient feel to it. It's broadleaf. I think it's mostly oak trees. It is fantastic, and this is going to be the first image of the day. It's actually getting me really excited for autumn as well. There's some really subtle colours changing on some of the leaves. They're going a really slight sort of yellow tint, and yeah, it's getting me a bit excited. Now, before I get into this composition, I wanted to mention something about woodland photography that I guess learned from a fellow landscape photographer, a bloke called Gary Goff, who is a wonderful landscape photographer, and he's got a fantastic YouTube channel as well. I'll put it in the video description below if you want to check it out after this video. But yeah, he does a fair bit of woodland photography as well, and he made this particular video only a few weeks ago about woodland photography in a broad sense of the term, and he was trying to help his viewers, and he said this one thing that really struck me, and it's incredibly simple, and I'll be honest, it made me feel really stupid when I listened to what he said, and it gave me a bit of a light bulb moment. But anyway, to paraphrase, he was basically saying that in order to, one of the first rules of woodland photography in order to get some good photographs is to find a woodland that looks nice. As simple as that. And obviously I knew that in the back of my mind somewhere, but it took him to say that for me to realise that's actually really true. There's sometimes I'd just go to a local woodland of mine and something about it didn't feel right. I guess it has to be a nice woodland, generally speaking. Of course you can still get nice photographs at woodlands that aren't nice. I guess a nice woodland is subjective. It's a subjective term anyway. But he put it like this. He said, you wouldn't go out to a wider landscape to an area that's rubbish and expect to come home with mint photographs. You need to find an area that looks nice, and then you give yourself a really good chance of getting some nice photographs. Everything else comes after that. And yeah, of course that's incredibly simple, but I kind of just wanted to pass that on to you guys as well, because it made me really think, like, the scouting, the exploration, and all the work that goes into just finding a nice woodland in the first place is actually really important. And for me, it takes a certain type of woodland, just like this one here, to actually inspire me to want to get my camera out in the first place. So yeah, definitely something to think about. Now, first shot of the day here, the conditions are actually fairly decent. It's quite overcast and gloomy. The sun's been breaking through every now and again, which I'm trying to avoid for this particular photograph at least. But yeah, if you look here, we've just got these two nice sort of oak trees. So one here, and then one further over here, I think just at the top of the camera. And this is something that I really like to do with my woodland shot, to one's on the left hand side of the frame towards the edge of the frame, and then one's on the right hand side. It's almost like a bit of symmetry, and they've both got a lot of character at the top of the trees in that they're kind of leaning into each other and creating this area in the middle where, what have we got? I think it might be a couple of silver birch trees, I'm not 100% sure, but it creates this interest in the center of the frame, and yeah, I really like that. So I'm taking actually 3 separate images, and they're all fairly similar. I'm just changing the focal length ever so slightly. So the first one, I'm actually including some of these rocks down here in the foreground. I'm not sure if it might help to add a little bit of character to the whole photograph, and help to anchor the image a little bit as well. I'm not 100% sure. Then I've zoomed in a little bit more to exclude the rocks, and I've zoomed in even further to create something that's actually almost a little bit abstract in the woodland, whereby we haven't got any of the floor, mostly just trying to capture the character of these 2 oak trees as they kind of lean into each other. In my last woodland video I talked a lot about how I'm trying to reduce the contrast in post-processing, so I'm kind of taking this image with that in mind. I think sometimes it can be quite good practice to actually think about and envision how you're going to edit a photograph when you're out taking it. So in this instance, I'm making sure I've got my histogram as far to the right hand side as possible, as not to clip the highlights, but to make sure that I can really decrease the contrast almost. And I think this is going to be a scene where that's going to work really nicely, because we've naturally got a few different shades of light as we go through the image, which helps to add a little bit of depth. So the lack of contrast that I'm going to give to the image in post-processing isn't necessarily going to make it a flat photograph. I really hope that makes sense. ISO 100, f9 and 1/1/6 of a second. I'm focused just on one of these oak trees, and f9 should give us a nice even focus. I'm just going to grab another shot here because the the wind has died down somewhat. It's been quite windy, so I've been a bit worried with quite a long shutter speed that some of the leaves will be blurry. Just check the histogram. Wonderful. So nice one to start off the afternoon. It's getting quite late in the day now. I've done a lot of exploring, but I feel like I'm in the right place now. I'll show you this image. Hope you like it as always, and then I'm going to explore a little bit further in this wonderful little deciduous woodland. So I just wanted to stop very briefly in the midst of this woodland adventure to let you know that I'm gonna take my 2021 calendar off the pre-orders really soon. So if you're thinking about maybe buying one, I'd say get in now, or else you're only gonna have to pay for postage after the pre-orders. I've been incredibly overwhelmed actually by the support that I've received. I've sold loads of calendars, which is obviously really exciting and really encouraging for this this venture of mine, this landscape photography career. And I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody that's purchased one. Your support goes a hell of a long way, and it really does mean the world. So yeah, I'll put a link in the video description if you wanted to purchase one of my calendars. Of course, it's a wonderful way to support what I do here and support my work. And yeah, super overwhelmed, and thank you all so much. Absolutely mint. So I think I've had a little bit of tunnel vision as I've been exploring around this area. You can see here a lot of these ferns are on the turn, I guess because it's towards the end of summer. We'll soon be getting into autumn. I don't know if they're dying away or whatever, but the colours are beautiful. Obviously this sort of rusty orangey brown colour, and yeah, I think I've just been a bit tunnel visioned on this section, really trying to figure out a composition, because it's just giving the forest this nice splash of colour that, you know, this time of year the greens all sort of end up becoming the same colour. Everything becomes a bit flat. For myself, the end of summer just before autumn is probably the worst time for autumn photography, for woodland photography, because everything, like I said, starts becoming a little bit flat, especially colour wise. But I'm going to explore this area and really try and just focus on a small section of the woodland, and fingers crossed we can get one more photograph. So, shot number 2. We've got some of the rusty brown ferns in the foreground. However, I'm going to say something that I say quite often on this channel about my own photography. I'm not really too sure about this image. However, I'm not really too fussed. I'm happy to be practicing composition, working woodland composition in particular. I'm staying consistent with my woodland photography, and you know, overall I'm really delighted that I found this awesome broadleaf woodland with autumn coming up. It's a reasonable distance from home. So yeah, I'm not too fussed. I don't know the woods, the conditions aren't great. Just trying to see if I can think of any more excuses. No, it's alright, you know. We're out and about with the camera, that's the main thing. Right, long lens is on. So what I'm doing here is playing around with depth of field a little bit. I've got an oak tree and a couple of silver birch off in the distance, and I've focused on this particular oak tree, which is the main prominent subject within this frame. Shooting at f5.6 with the long lens on, I'm at about 100mm, means that the foreground, i.e. the rusty brown ferns, are actually out of focus ever so slightly, and then the same as the background where we've actually got a fell and the focus falls off. So apart from the main woodland scene when we've got the oak tree and the silver birch trees, it's almost a kind of bokeh effect, which is really cool. And sometimes I like playing around with the depth of field in this way with the long lens especially. It's actually accentuated. So ISO 100, f5.6 like I said, and 1/40th of a second, and yeah, it's pretty nice. We've got this oak tree that's got this branch that leans off over towards the silver birch trees, and actually into the centre of the frame as well, which is nice. I do like having these rusty orange coloured ferns in the foreground, even though they're a little bit out of focus. I think it just adds a little bit of a splash of colour into the foreground, into the whole photograph really. Like I was saying earlier, that's what I was trying to achieve, which is nice, because otherwise it's just a bit, I mean, look behind me, it's a bit flat and boring. All the greens are the same colour, like I was trying to explain before. So yeah, overall, I suppose when I'm saying this, I'm trying to give encouragement to you guys as well. Don't always get so down on yourself if you're not feeling a certain composition. Always remember that you're practicing, you're working your photography, you know, you're out with your camera at the end of the day. That means so much. You know, you might learn something from this particular shoot that you can take into your next shoot, and so on and so forth. And over a period of months and years, you know, you're only going to continually improve. Must admit, I think this is going to be a cracking woodland come autumn, and it's not too far from home, and yeah, not a bad image. I think I probably prefer the first photograph that I took earlier, but like I say, nice to work composition a little bit. in the woods. So another wonderful woodland adventure. It's really nice to be back in the woods after I had that stint there. When was it? At the end of lockdown, and like I've kept saying, it's something that I want to continue with, especially the autumn is on the way. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Your support is always greatly received, and please remember that I've left a link to my calendar pre-order in the video description below, and yeah, any calendar purchases as well, of course, massively appreciated. Thank you for the support. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like, and I shall see you on the next adventure. Out.